All right, what is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Squawk with Swoop. I've got the privilege of interviewing Sal Perna today, another Collingwood board nominee. Sal, I've been trying to get in contact with you for a while. Read your bio, loved it. Finally we get to catch up and have a chat. Swoopers, welcome Sal to the show.
Thanks, Luke, and thanks for the invite. I appreciate that.
No worries, mate. Look, first off, one again, thank you for coming on. Secondly, we'll start with the easiest question that I kind of ask everyone is, tell us a little bit about yourself and your Collingwood journey.
Well, I think all the description for most of us that are long-time Pie supporters, that we love the club, that we're die-hard supporters. I'm just another Collingwood tragic, basically. I was born and bred in Collingwood, in a little street called Brown Street. People would describe it as a rocker torpedo away from the big park ground. I went to school, a little school called St. John's on the corner of Victoria Parade and Hoddle Street. And I used to get angry that was called East Melbourne when it was on the other side of Collingwood, because I wanted it to be in Collingwood so I could say I went to school in Collingwood. I ended up in my teenage years being in a housing commission estate in Clifton Hill, which is part of Collingwood.
Yep.
We started off with kicking rolled up newspapers in the street and calling out the Collingwood players' names as we marked the newspaper that was the football,
Yeah.
We go to training on Tuesdays and Thursdays and kick the ball out to the players that came out early in the piece. I ended up, when I joined the police force, I worked at the Collingwood police station for 4 years.
No way.
Part of that was standing behind the away teams or in front of the away teams cheer squad on the ground during the home games at Vic Park. I probably was a bit too hard on them, particularly watching when the Pies were playing and losing. Played footy for the local YCW team at Clifton Hill. It just goes back and it's continued. Yeah. In about 1980, I think, I first became a social club member. In the days where we used to actually go and vote at AGMs at Vic Park. And then about 20 years ago, I became a Legends member. And my daughter, who comes to the games with me, is a Legends member as well. And we've just followed that all the way through. So the black and white goes right through to, my dog's name was named after the Lexus Centre when it was then, Lexi. So I'm a tragic. I'm a Collingwood tragic.
That's exactly like all of us. That was your life revolved around Collingwood even before the club and stuff, which is insane. Look, I want to just start off. You touched on your work as a policeman as well, and you moved into which is your kind of biggest thing on your resume, the inaugural racing integrity commissioner. How do you think that sort of experience can relate to the Collingwood board if you do get nominated onto there?
Yeah, a couple of ways, I think, Luke. One is policing creates or provides you with life experiences. It's a job that you're out in the coalface and you're meeting and dealing with a variety of situations and a variety of people, from rich people to poor people to successful people to people that are struggling, people with good, decent lives, people who have drug problems, alcoholic problems, the whole gamut of society. And that gives you a lot of skills about making judgments, making decisions, how to get a perspective on life, be balanced, be open-minded about different things. And that went right through into the roles I had at Telstra and Australia Post, running my own business, and then in the racing integrity field where I had to look at what was going on in greyhounds, in thoroughbreds, and in harness to make sure things were right. I think if you sort of capture all of that and put it to where it is today, I've got a good sense of what justice is, what the right thing is, and also a very balanced perspective, and I think more importantly, an independent perspective.
Yeah,
and I think that's important on any board, let alone on the Magpie board, where you can look at a scenario, listen to different things, ask the right questions, and then have a balanced judgment on what should be done.
And I think that's really important as well. Like you said, balance and that sort of independency. If there is if you do get on the board or whoever and kind of as an independent and it splits, you need to have that person there to kind of step back for a second, assess everything that's going on, and that's how you can make that judgment.
Yeah, and that's very true. It's a minor example. We talk about governance a lot and how governance is important on boards specifically, but it's important generally. So knowing about governance means knowing that, for example, if the board's discussing something and you've got some sort of personal interest in it or a potential interest in it or what might be perceived to be an interest in it, you should know that what you've got to do is put your hand up and say, listen, I know this guy or I know this company or I'm an investor in this company or a shareholder in it. I shouldn't be listening to this or I shouldn't be voting on that. It's a very minor thing to declare a conflict of interest, but it's a really critical aspect of governance. And that's the sort of things that you've got to keep in mind when you're on a board.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. And talking about boards as well, I can see here that you've been on a couple of boards, and one of them was the National Basketball League, so the NBL. You are on a advisory board. Can you just talk us a little bit through that?
Yeah, I think the roles I've had in sport have really come around in probably the last 20 years or so. My involvement in sport was at, junior level, suburban level, my son playing footy in the old North Coburg Saints, and then, one day getting asked to be the goal umpire, and the next day you're a trainer, and then you're going off doing an AFL sports trainers program and all sorts of things. And that was the initial interest. And then later on, when it became a bit more professional, it was things like sitting on the AFL Victoria Tribunal.
Yep.
I did that for 20 years, wow. Which gave me a really good insight onto how players think and behave, and having to make judgments about, are they protecting each other? Are they being honest or not? What do the umpires see and how much can they see, etc. Onto positions like the racing position and then the basketball position. And the basketball position is being an advisor on a board that helps the NBL with decisions they make about how to engage with fans, the merchandising aspect of it, the integrity aspect, etc. So the football stuff, the basketball stuff, the racing stuff, and the position I've got on the International Tennis Integrity Board has exposed me to other sports, national and international. And I think it's just realised, I guess, that I've got a bit of a passion for sport.
Yeah, and talking about, kind of segues perfect into this next sort of question. You talk about being on, the tennis, the basketball, you were the tribunal member. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But with seeing all these other sports and then being around so many sports, how or where do you see Collingwood taking that next step? Whether you're on the board or not, where do you see us taking that next step to kind of get back to being the biggest club in the land? Get back to being something that the world kind of you want the world to talk about you.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this, but if you read the history of the club, and some things jump out. Number one is, we won something like 11 premierships in the first 40 years. That's better than one every 4 years.
Yeah.
And yet we've gone to a situation where we won one in 58, and then it took till 32 years for the next one, and then 20 for the next one. So we all strive for that success on the field. But the success on the field won't come without success off the field. And that's a whole range of things. And many of them are driven by the board. So having a strategy about success off field, getting the right partners, the right sponsors, having good finances that put us in place where we can get good resources, and understanding, financial reports, balance sheets, profit and loss statements, and all the sorts of things that help us in a financial position so that we can look at getting good players. But the thing for me is to set that up off field so that we can help engender the success on the field. And the other I think, important thing for a board and for management is creating that culture. And, that's got an abstract sort of a definition, but it really means how the players feel about the place. So Do they feel inclusive? Do they feel happy? Do they feel well-resourced? Do they look forward to going to the club? Do they look forward to putting that jumper on? Because I can't think of a better thing to do than pull the jumper on and go out and play for Collingwood. And that's ultimately one of the biggest measures of success, to want players to come to the club and want to come to the club. I want to hear the big names go, you know what, when my free agency comes around, I want to be at Collingwood.
Yeah.
And part of that is, I want to play the G and I want to play in front of 60, 70, 80,000 people, but I want to go there because it's a powerful club and it's a passionate club. And I know when I go there that I've got to be in the environment I want to be, that's a happy and productive environment, and they'll get the very best out of me. That's what I really would love to see.
No, that's like you mentioned players nominating. Off the top of my head, Treloar might have been the biggest name recently, because it was us or Richmond. Previous to that, I guess you could kind of say Taylor Adams, but previous to that, it was Luke Ball and Darren Jolly. And you think, and there's a lot of narrative going around, like, we should be, Tom Lynch should be nominating for us. All these other sort of players, and you're right, we tout that we're the best club, and Lucuria, in one of the interviews that I had with him, he mentioned that we need to drop the ego. We're not as good as we think we are, but we should be better than we are. Then, you know what I mean? And that's what we need. Like you said, that's exactly what we need to bring back. Yeah,
we've got to earn that. I can remember being on a plane many years ago, and I sat next to Ron Barassi. We're going to Tassie, just as individuals, but we got talking about footy or whatever. And he told me that Tony Lockett was a signed deal. We were going to get Lockett at the Pies. And then, of course, that fell through. And it was one of those instances, one of those milestones that it could have been, like, the grand finals it could have been, and the players that we could have had or whatever. And we're going to have to earn that again. We're going to have to earn the respect of other players, whether they're kids that are coming through the twos or the VFL, the feeder groups or whatever, all players at another team that have been drafted to that team, but ultimately they want to play with us. We need to earn that respect for them to think that, rather than, I'll see what I'm worth when the clubs come out and want to bid for me.
Yeah.
We want them to say, look, I want to go to the Pies. Don't even come near me. I don't want to have a conversation with you. And the other way to measure that is, look at the clubs that have taken a bit of a haircut with their salaries, because they want success as a team. And it really is about team. It's not about the individuals. Look at the Geelongs and Hawthorns and Richmonds and others who have said, okay, look, I'm worth a lot more than what you're going to pay me, but I'll take a reduced salary so that you can use that money to go out and recruit, whoever it happens to be. That's the fabric of the club. That's the sort of stuff that we really need, and we're going to have to build that over a few years.
No, 100%. And yeah, that's they always write about the Geelong team taking pay cuts. That's how they got Cameron in. That's how they got Dangerfield in. And you want to be that. And Geelong can back it up with all their premierships and contesting all the time. And yeah, we'd love to get onto that plane. Look, I've got a question from Tom Morris, kind of relates to what we've been talking about. Just pop it on the screen. He says, Sal, in your opinion, what has been our biggest achievement in the last 10 years?
I think it's a combination, and a lot of it goes to Eddie's vision for the club, to realise that if we're going to establish ourselves as a powerful club, we need to have the MCG as our home ground. We need, what was Alexa Centre, the Holden Centre now, as a base that's across the road in the sporting precinct of Melbourne, and we need to have the best facilities. And if you think back, we were the leaders in all of that. We had it all. We adopted methods that we saw in the American sports, with how they put together coaching panels rather than a head coach and a few people that did some skill stuff. We set ourselves all up. We did a lot of those things, and at the same time, we recruited good partners and good sponsors. We did really well with community service stuff, getting into partnerships with the Magpie Nest, the Salvos, the whole bunch of stuff that we did. We really positioned ourselves really well. And I think that took a long time. And I think over the last 10 years, that's what I would say that we've done. But we've now got to take that to the next level, and that's got to be reflected in the on-field stuff.
No, 100%. And like you said, we've brought on the netball as well. The AFLW team is doing really well. Got a good coaching in there. New coaching panel. What I kind of love about, look, this year, everyone can admit, 17th, crappy year. But what I do love about it now is that it's a whole reset. And I guess this new board, even though it was a narrative that went through the whole year, and now there's going to be a vote for it, I think it's just a great time to hit the reset button. New coaching panel. We've got We've obviously got Nick Dacos in. A whole new coaching panel, which is opposed to the 2017 sort of the reshuffling that Peter Murphy did an extraordinary job with. But yeah, like I said, new coaching panel. We want to have new board members. It's just going to be a perfect reset for the club to kind of take us back into our prime.
Yeah, and there's a lot of management sayings about you need a good crisis to create change, and I think this is what we should look at the situation that we've had over the last year. That these have been crises, whether you call them major or minor or whatever, but they've provided the catalyst for us to have change now and to rethink what we do. I'm really positive about the future. I think we've got a great selection, a very thorough selection for McRae as the head coach. Bolton and Lepage are going to be terrific people to have with him working together. They've got, 6, grand finals, premierships between them as players and assistant coaches. We've created that environment. We've had some good pickups in the last couple of years. We've got a great senior list there. We've got terrific facilities that we're going to renovate. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going. We just need to tweak it a little bit and make sure that we're thinking ahead so that we can give the guys the best possible opportunity of, making a grand final and winning it. I think there's 16 grand finals that we've played in since '58. 16, and we've come away with 2. That's not acceptable. There's something that's got to happen to make that success rate better than that, and we're well placed to make that happen.
No, 100%. Exactly right. We're like with that reset, we're kind of getting back into it, and amazing appointments with that coaching panel, coaching searching panel did a fantastic job with that. Look, I want to kind of talk about the other sort of roles that you had. It says you're a former mentor for the youth philanthropy program, and and just being a part of all these other boards. And there's a lot of talk about how the board should do their board thing and let the players do their playing thing and the coaches do their coaching thing. But with this sort of and yourself being on the tribunal, with this sort of experience, I guess you can. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You can kind of empathize with the players a lot more. I feel, with knowing how they kind of think as a tribunal member and having that experience there. And then we've brought in, I think, over the last 2 years, there's been over a dozen of new kids as well, and kind of being that mentor.
Yeah, look, our motto is side by side, which is about teamwork. And I think every person that works at the club, whether you're paid, unpaid, whether you're an honorary board member, whether you're a volunteer, we've all got a role to play to make the club as best as we can make it. And that's recognising that different people have got different skills. And the way that it usually works is people on a board have got some skills that they could offer the club in different capacity than just being a board member and working on the board. And mentoring is one of those. We've got a lot of kids that are in the prime of their youth who don't have a lot of life experiences and can be open to vulnerabilities. They've got some time on their hands because they're professional athletes. They've got access to money. They've got access to fame. They get looked after at clubs, whether it's drink cards or whatever it happens to be. They'll be approached by the wrong type of people. They really need people to help them out and give them at least some basic tools about how to form judgments. We've all got a role to play in that, and I think the player development, and Collingwood's been really good with that, making sure they've got something to go to after their playing career as well. But we've all got a role to play in that.
No, 100%. I couldn't have said it myself. Well, I want to just talk with you just before I get into another question that I've just seen. we talked about a little bit before. You said, you talked about Eddie's vision, and it just kind of brings to mind, Fremantle just came out and said in 5 years they want a premiership with their men and their women's team. Richmond 10 years ago, or however long it was, they said they wanted a bunch of premierships in a decade. I can't really remember a time when maybe the succession plan, or a time when Collingwood have come out and said, this is the sort of goals that we want to hit, to kind of keep the supporters as just KPIs, because we don't know if next year their KPI is making finals or their KPI is just sitting between 10th and 15th. Is that something that we should see more of from the club?
I think the danger with that is that people, number one, are asked to make a decision on something like that they can't have any effect on.
Yeah.
You don't know what the draft's going to bring. You're not sure the health and fitness of your players. Darcy goes down with a bad knee, has a major effect on us.
Yep.
There's some things that are out of your control. So that's number one. To make a judgment, that's really, really tough. Number two is that you make a judgment on it and then you're held to account, and that could almost preempt failure. It'd be very easy for a CEO or a president of a club say, we're going to play in the next 3 grand finals. Very easy, because you actually physically and mentally believe that that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
But because of the other factor that you don't know what's going to happen, you could have a scandal, you could have the players fall out with each other, the players lose faith in the coach or whatever. Those things just can't happen. So I think it's a difficult one to actually force people to give a definitive answer on. What we can give a definitive answer on is to say that we want to grow our fan base. We've got 82,000 plus passionate fans. We want to hit the 90,000 by whenever, or the 100,000 by whenever. We want more home games at the G, and we'll do everything we can to influence that. We'll do everything we can to get the facilities at world best level, from fitness and health, equipment, training, advisory people, surgeons, everything else. We will do that. We'll hit that. But it's the other factors that we have no control over that really cause the difficulty.
No, yeah, that as you say, that makes a lot of sense. And we saw that when Howie went down, when Darcy went down. 2018, we had a good year. No Darcy, does that change? And yeah, you're right. And I think you touching on the members is a big thing as well. 82,000. We know that there's only 11 to 13,000 that can vote, and there's been a lot of talk with letting all members have a say to be a real democratic sort of vote.
Yeah, my personal view is that every member should vote. If you're a shareholder in a major company, whether you've got $10 worth of shares or $100 worth of shares or $1 million worth of shares, you get to go to an AGM, you get to get all the financial reports, and you get an opportunity to vote. And how many votes you get is proportionate to the size of your shareholding, but you're part of that organisation, you've brought into that organisation, and whether you've got a Legends membership or you've got a 3-game membership, I don't think should matter. I think all the members should get a voice. This is about the fan base. This is about engaging with members. I don't think that there should be that eliteness about, depending on how much you pay for your membership, is whether you get a vote. That's my personal view.
No, I love that. Look, I'm going to Harry's got a good question to kind of change it up a little bit lighter. He says, so Harry Cooper says, lighter question, but who's some of your favourite players you've seen at the club?
Yeah, it's a great question, Harry. I think we're going to run out of time by the time I get through my list. But, a few people know, and my family and closest friends know. When I was growing up and going to Vic Park, and we'd go behind the goals, the first 3 players that would come out were John Greening, Barry Price, and Wayne Richardson. And they did their compulsory 4 laps, and then they would start having shots for goal until the rest of the players came out. And we'd get the balls from behind the goals and kick it back, and they would teach us how to kick properly, how to hold it, where to drop the ball from, et cetera, et cetera. And John Greening became my idol. And I've got one of his jumpers with a 22 in my bedroom now, I've got posters of him in my house. When I was still at school, I wrote to him because he was a bank officer in those days and asked him what it was like to work at a bank, and I've still got his letter here. So he was my number one favourite player ever. And then there's been a whole myriad of them that I've just loved the whole time. And I tend to get drawn to players who have got that passion, who just gave their all. You know, Gavin Brown was another one. He just gave everything. He left it all out there. Darren Mullane was another one who left it all out there. I love Braden Maynard. You know, when he's going for the ball, you know he's not going to flinch. He's not going to take it at 80%. He's going to go in 100%. I love watching all this. I like the players with the finesse as well, but it's always been the ones that have got that grunt and the ones that have got a bit of personality that I guess that I've been drawn to. You know, I could sit there and listen to Swanee all day. This laconic type approach and just talking to stuff. And you know, the Shaw's another good example of that. Didac. There's people who just got that charisma and that personality that you love, but there's too many of them to go through.
And kind of leading on, what are you most excited about, whether it be one of the new players or like, what are you most excited about for next season?
I'm like everybody else about Dacos. You know, growing up, watching his dad play, and then seeing some of the things that Josh can do. I don't know how you can't be excited about him. I don't think all the talent scouts can all be wrong about saying he's ready-made. He's going to get. I can't wait for him to run out onto the ground with the 35 and just watch his first game of footy. That's. But I'm also really excited that we're going to have hopefully a full list. You know, all the guys that have gone through the shoulders and the knees and all the other bits and pieces to see. You know, run out against the Saints on that night, on that Friday night in our first game. I'm just really excited for that.
No, definitely. And look, as much as it's kind of disappointing that we finished 17th, you can kind of see it as, like I keep saying reset. I love that word today. But, you know, with Darcy Moore doing his knee, you'd rather him do it when we're not playing finals. You know, and Jeremy Howe getting back to full fitness. He had that you know, he had to go back in for a little bit of a cleanup and a surgery. And like you said, it's just going to be a full list. Dacos, you got Maynard potentially, your boy potentially moving into the midfield as well. He's dropped some kgs. And I think Maynard in the middle, like you said, 100% that big body, Taylor Adams is going to help him out. It's just going to be phenomenal and exciting with Craig McRae and Lepper and Bolts at the helm.
Yeah, and what's good about it is that they've started now. You know, the boys are looking pretty good. Their fitness levels are pretty good. And all three of them, plus the other coaches, are spending time one-on-one with each of them. And that's just as critical, because what goes on in your brain is going to affect you on the field. And giving those guys the support they need, the advice they need, the programs that they need over the Christmas period, where you can go a little bit off the rails and just drop your guard a little bit with some of the fitness, some of the diet, etc., is critical. And they're putting investment in it. I mean, McRae's, you know, he's a teacher. He wants to teach the boys. He wants to nurture. He wants to develop them as people. That's great stuff. And that gives us a few months to put that into place for the first game.
No, that's another incredible thing. And it kind of comes back to, you know, how you're talking about mentoring the youth and stuff in your philanthropy program, and a bit of what you're going to do, you know, if you do get on the board. But look, Sal, it's been almost half an hour. Is there anything you want to sign off to tell the Collingwood members before we go?
Oh, not really. I mean, I could, you know, use the old keep the faith type sayings and everything, but I think they just should be proud that they followed the club for whatever period of time they have, especially the last couple of years where they've paid their fees, they've supported the club, they've defended the club, but have been unable to get to the games. You know, that's why we follow it. We want to be there. We want to yell and scream, and we want to encourage the boys to do their best, and we love that. You know, people hate us, and I don't know why people hate us. unless you've been around for 50, 60 years and that we knock people out in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. I don't know why you'd hate Collingwood. What have we done to anybody? So be proud that you barrack for them and stand up and say to people, I'm Collingwood supporter, and be proud when you say that. So that's the only thing I do, just encourage people to keep the passion.
Nah, love that. Sal, thank you so much for jumping on it. It really means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the supporters as well that you can come on, that everyone can come on for a chat. And I could talk to you for hours if you didn't have to go to this dinner, mate. But no, I do. I really do appreciate it. And again, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll be talking in the future sometime.
My pleasure. Thanks, Lou.
All right, thanks, Sal. Have a nice day. See you, Swoopers. Have a good one.